Hey, my name is John. Welcome to Muggle Studies 101, where a normal person who has no idea about the whole Harry Potter mythology watches Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So this one was a very interesting one for me. I will say that after editing, watching, and trying to digest a lot of the first Harry Potter film, which is Sorcerer's Stone, I have to admit a couple things. I went maybe a little bit overboard with the critiquing of the film, and a little bit of it was more so ranting, which I'll still do a lot of, but I will be a little more succinct, as I did a lot of editing for the previous film. I mean a lot. I said so a lot. You didn't see those because there's a lot of jump cuts. That's on purpose, maybe my style as well. Point being, I didn't read the books, and if you haven't seen part 1 about me watching Sorcerer's Stone, you should do that first. I'll write a little thing that should pop up in the corner, I think, if I'm good about this. Chamber of Secrets, second film. I will say, wow. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second film in this 8-film saga. So we start off by Harry going home. I thought maybe he wasn't going home in the first film. I am wrong. He actually was home with his aunt and uncle and his cousin, who are still really, really, really bad parental figures. They shouldn't be near him. They shouldn't be treating him this way. You would think that the teachers would know that he's home and he lives underneath the stairs, that would come up in a conversation or something, but regardless, the kid is home. He's told to stay in his room numerous times. His whole family hates the fact that he's got an owl. Whatever. Needs some exercise. They're like, no, he's not going out. So I don't know if Harry's just kept in the room most of the time during the summer. Not too sure. I guess the point being here is that he is a prisoner in this house. Always was, still is. They hate the fact that he went to Hogwarts, and they really resent him for it, and his aunt tells him that in the first film. This is more so in the second one, where a house elf shows up, Dobby. He shows up, and immediately you're like, oh, look, it's someone who needs some help. I bet Harry's gonna help him out, because that's how the plot gets started. And immediately you start saying, don't go back to Hogwarts, because something horrible is going to happen to you. And he knows all this. Can't divulge anything, won't divulge who is his house owners, who keep him as a slave, mind you. We know this because Dobby does the thing that I find very, very alarming.
Well, you can't have met many decent wizards then.
No, I haven't. That was an awful thing to say.
Oh, jeez. Whoa, hey now. Oh, whoa. Whoa.
Oh, don't mind that. It's just the cat.
So that scene was very alarming to me, because he keeps doing it multiple times, but it is still something that just frightens me. No one should be hitting themselves after making a mistake or being treated as equal and being psychologically punished and abused. Sorry, that's rough as an adult to watch, in general. And this is the beginning of the film, mind you, so that, you know, where weird stuff's happening. He tells him all this information, a lot of noise is happening, and then his aunt and uncle do what I think would have been the last straw. Bar the windows and put 5 locks in his room. They're totally, I mean, the only thing they're not doing is throwing him scraps in a metal pan and taking away everything in that room. That's child abuse, guys. It's straight up child abuse, mentioned it the first time. However, I'm glad that this is the last we see of them, because Ron and his brothers, thank God, come by in the most amazing flying beat up piece of junk from what seems to be the mid-60s. Perfect. Yes, I love it. Flying car, coming to the rescue. So everybody loves a flying car. I don't know. They save him. Finally, Ron comes back with his brothers to the Weasley household. And at this point we meet the Weasley parents, who we find out are also magically inclined. The one thing we notice too is that their father does what's called Muggle studies. So the big thing about that is apparently they watch the Muggles world. So more and more we get used to the fact, or I am later absorbed the information that I wasn't getting in the first film, which was the world of a normal Muggle world you and I would have, and then magical world that coexists but is separated. That answers my question from the first film that I never got answered, which was, does everybody know that this happens? Because at the train station, you got the person who works at the train station who was escorting, the kids and telling them not to goof around. And then after, when you meet the parents, Weasley parents, and they get dropped off at 9 3/4 again, Portal doesn't exist at the 9 3/4 train station because it's shut off by some magical instance, and the train station employee doesn't acknowledge this. It's weird. They say, "Oh, why are you goofing around?" I'm like, don't you remember kids going through carts, going through that brick wall? My friend and housemate Paisha explained to me that in the books it's much more explained and it's thought out, and I might get that later on in the film, but that random thought process isn't just hanging out as a loose end. This is stuff that if you're a kid and you just like films and don't want to read, I suppose you would understand that and absorb it and not even worry about it. Me as a 35-year-old man, I'm going to pick that up a lot easier as something that's just odd. Point being, Weasley's families are really magical people. They're nice people. I like that family more than anybody in these films. I think I mentioned that before. So Harry goes with the Weasley family, and they're going to buy their stuff at not Chinatown, Magic Town, and they're buying their stuff, and we get introduced to the Gildry Lockhart? It's Lockhart, I'm just calling him Lockhart, who is the snively, slimy salesman, womp womp womp, look at me, Rex Manning looking guy who's trying to sell his wares, and everybody loves him. And then at the same time, you get to see their parents, you get to see a little bit of Hermione's parents too that get mentioned briefly, and Ron's parents end up talking to Draco's parents, the Malfoys. You get introduced to Hook, Evil Legolas. Yes, so we get Malfoy Senior here. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree in this instance. And we really get to one of the key things in this whole film, which is more racism. Or the analogy of racism. So I mentioned to it as a passiveness about the goblins in the first film. I'm not going to bring that one up again. But in this one, it is obvious that they use terms that are slight against Muggles, which becomes a derogatory word. Not a fan. It's obvious he's going to be a bad guy. He'll come back later, obviously. But they get dropped off, so Ron and Harry are the last two people to go and try to go through the portal. They can't. It's shut off, like I mentioned. What do? They steal the flying car. When Ron and Harry steal the flying car, and they get to Hogwarts, and then the car kind of just shoots them out and goes on its merry way. Eventually, when they get back to Hogwarts, Ron gets a card from their parents, yelling at them, which I think is a pretty awesome thing. Getting a screamer thing from an owl, dropping it off, and all the kids know what it is, and he gets reamed out for stealing the car. It's a cool little story thing. And we get introduced to Ron having a sister too during that process. So cool. He's got like 3 siblings, so there's 4 in that family. That's neat. Yeah, so they're back in. They're not gonna get expelled, Ron and Harry. They're just whatever. So then we are given more shots of fun in the classroom, which you got to do with a lot of children's books and a lot of children's film. We're introduced to another professor here. God, I wrote down her name. I missed it until they brought it up again. Oh boy. I wrote it down. Wow. Oh, God. Okay. Which is Madam Sprout. And that's because she works in the greenhouse and she grows plants. Then we are shown probably the scariest and most strangest thing I've seen so far in these films.
Grasp your mandrake firmly. You pull it sharply out of the force. Got it? And
Oh, way.
sprint into soil.
That's frightening.
Longbottom's been neglecting his earmuffs.
No, ma'am. He's just fainted.
Yeah, so that mandrake plant, little unnerving, frightening, to be honest. It'll probably get brought up later on, like the whole levitation thing is brought up in the first film multiple times, and seeing how all this is connected somehow, I'm sure that's going to be brought back. Once again, Cleese, Sir Nicholas, love his little cameos. I also did like the fact that we start seeing Lockhart as another professor and adjunct, or I think just another professor that's on campus now doing the whole dark craft stuff. Cornish Pixies, that was a cool little scene. You know, another classroom fun thing you gotta show, have kids have fun. It's a kids film, so you gotta do it. But this brings up another whole point of this film. I know it's a kids film based on a kid's book. Here's the thing. The people in charge, the adults, the people that actually have power in these films and are supposed to give guidance, often are portrayed as imbeciles or ulterior motives that would harm children, and or sometimes it's both, sometimes it's they're just a bad guy, or they're just good guys that don't know any better. This film also has a running theme of that as well. In the last film, obviously you had, I mentioned it in the Sorcerer's Stone, there's the three-headed dog, not Cerberus, but Fluffy or whatever his name is. He's a large dog who's watching over the entrance to get to the stone, right? You gotta have that type of guard dog literally on that type of thing, I suppose, that type of literary device. Except leaving a dog inside a cement enclosed castle with nothing around them, barely able to fit in there, a little worrisome. Anyway, you would think that these professors would know that these types of animals are on campus. It's a school, after all. Yeah, it's a wealth of knowledge about magic and how you teach kids at a young age to get magic, but there's certain things that are dangerous. Don't have them on school grounds. But this is where adventure comes from. I mean, of course, you're going to tell your kids, don't go down the left area down there or else you'll die, or you know, these are all plot devices. I understand. It's to get something going. I understand it's to have mystique and an environment for all of that to shine. However, bad teachers that don't know when to call it quits and call their parents up and say, take them home, as we'll see. So Harry ends up hearing some voices, right? Blood, kill, blood. So of course this starts a whole thing with our group, HRH. Hermione, Ron, and Harry. Harry hears voices, so everybody's like, okay, let's follow you. And all of a sudden you get threats in blood, and you see Mrs. Norin, who is Filch's cat. Not dead, like I would assume. I thought that was going to get pretty hardcore quick. No death. Just, you know, kind of sleeping hard for a while. In a coma. In a stasis. They're in a stasis. Here's the thing is that everybody recognizes that something is happening. So when this happens again to multiple students throughout the film, you start realizing that there is a problem on campus, that it is affecting everyone. So therefore, there is actual stakes involved for everyone that's at the campus. They could be next. Then you bring up the Chamber of Secrets, and you eventually get into this whole story of how the second coming of the true heir of Slytherin to open up the gate and to reveal its dangers. You find out about the houses of Hogwarts, starting the original houses, Ravenclaw, Hugglepuff, Ravenclaw. I'm gonna eventually get this. Slytherin, Gryffindor, Mugglepuff, Hugglepuff, Nugglepuff, and did I already say Slytherin? Ravenclaw. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. I'm getting there. Rome wasn't built in a day. You learn the story about how how the whole school started and how there was it's legendary. But the kids feel absolutely fine to ask Rhoda Avonlea, Wendy, Madam Maggie Smith about these things. Madam Maggie has no problem telling them about it. It's very strange that McGonagall has no problem talking to them about McGonagall. Has no problem talking to them about this thing. And then they say, well, it's a legend, so be careful. So it's like you're already just giving all the kids information. And then, of course, like the previous film, HRH ends up devising this plan inside. Oh, it must be this because this. Oh, it can't be this. Well, it's got to be. Well, that means that this is what's happening. And who's in charge? Well, it's got to be Draco. It's got to be Draco. They devise this plan of I don't know what's going to happen. But people are getting knocked off and we need to do something about it. And then there's this weird scene that I don't quite understand that happens, which isn't necessary to the plot any, because they have no evidence. So I guess this is a way of trying to build evidence. So Hermione creates this concoction to look exactly like Slytherin house members. So they get the two fat boys, who apparently have no problem grabbing, even though they have 12 donuts in their hands each, grabbing a floating cupcake, which they would think, oh, that's not normal. Let's eat that right now. And of course they pass out, and they get concoct some weird potion where they start looking like everybody. As soon as any one of HRH drinks that, they start looking like this. Okay, so Ron and Harry go out, they look like Slytherin members, they go talk to Draco, and you get still same of the more pompous, titled racism that's in there against Muggles, and then they start calling Muggles Mugglers, which is the racist term that's being thrown out here. So this hate speech is being just blatantly yelled out. There's nothing to be learned here from this scene. It's just Draco saying the same crap. He doesn't know anything. They flee, and then they find Hermione ends up turning into a cat because she got the wrong hairs off this cloak that she was bumming from the person. I mean, the whole thing is, it's not needed in the film. They could have cut that right out. But CGI of a cat face on Hermione, I suppose. Useless little run there. So more kill blood things are heard, right? I'm starting to think that Harry is schizophrenic, honestly. And he sees little spiders that scurry. You would think, ooh, that's a sign too. That's another red herring. So, then, before I go any further, there's an important thing that we need to talk about. And it's still Quidditch. Presented as an actual game. You can get it on paper. Looks cool. Watching these videos, it is very clear that no one cares about the children's well-being. It is clear that the goaltender, the keeper, has had multiple injuries. We have seen already, these kids get hurt. There's no helmets. There's a little bit of shoulder pad and arm pads, which we see. We see a lot of players get knocked around and everything. It's still dangerous, and there's no bounds to speak of, because you see Harry and Draco go underneath and under the sides of, like, loading. The balls are just shooting through stands. And I understand that's magical being manipulated. Here's the point, though. If everything's magic and you don't trust anybody there, it happened with the fire in the previous movie when the kids put the fire out. I'm sure there's other things that have happened that are dangerous in this sport. This sport shouldn't happen, man. Give them some helmets. Tell them about concussions. And then I thought, oh, no one gets really hurt until the end of the game, where Harry once again wins, but he snaps his arm, man. And instead of Lockhart doing a spell to help, it actually makes it worse, and there's no bones, so he has to regrow some bones in the hospital. He gets out of there, the nurse gives him some booze to get better. I'm sure it's a concoction to regrow the bone, but whatever, it's booze in my head. Speaking of which, I should get some whiskey. We're going to the next part of the film, which is a magical book appears right where some flooding occurs in this women's bathroom, the same women's bathroom that HRH were using to make the potions and meet up and whatever. They're basically, it's their little headquarters, is this women's bathroom in this thing, and no one goes near it because of this Myrtle ghost who died there. She was a student, died there. She just haunts the place. She's annoying. Her voice is slightly irritating. It's flooding, and then this book appears. And there's a little bit of knowledge about, I guess, what the book is. I may have missed something where that's important, but there's no, there's nothing written in it. And then Harry just goes through the book, doesn't see anything. Harry drops some ink in there and absorbs. And the first thing Harry thinks of is to write in it. I would have thought of, oh, maybe there's like passages written. It's like secret ink stuff. So I would have got like some lemon citrusy acid-based concoction, to see if you can find stuff. But no, it's just I forget. Kids know what to do in these films. They grab a pen, he starts writing, and the book writes back. Interesting. And you realize that it's the book of this Thomas Riddle guy, who was a student there years ago. And he's basically seeing a flashback, Harry, of when this Riddle guy was like 50 years ago, when he was younger, and he sees a death happen at Hogwarts. Went down. He thinks he knows who did it. This is Thomas. Thinks he knows who did it. Doesn't tell. Dumbledore goes and confronts Hagrid. This is still in the flashback. Thomas goes to Hagrid and says, hey, I know what you've been hiding. This spider is the beast that everybody's talking about that guards the whole Chamber of Secrets. Blah, blah, blah. And this is the beast that's killing everybody. And so this is why everybody should be scared. So all these non-deaths are happening. Could be deaths. They're not deaths, they're just moments where the kids are seeing them through reflections and not dying. So very lucky. We're also in a children's book, so you can't kill off kids at willy-nilly or whatever. They're framing it as Hagrid did it. Harry Potter gets out of this weird flashback where they assume it's Hagrid housing a spider on the property. And at this point, right before Ron and Harry confront Hagrid, Hermione falls to this beast, which is, she saw them in a reflection too, so they don't know what it is. So they confront Hagrid, and Hagrid's like, oh, I know a little bit, but it's not my place, I don't know anything. So and at this point, you get confronted by Dumbledore and head of all school boards or something. I missed that. And then you get Gallifrey? No, Malfoy, who's also PTA board. I don't know, or I missed that announcement of his role with the school and all these other schools. And they're like, okay, you're going to prison. Also, Dumbledore, you're out. Clearinghouse. The kids have got their little invisible cloak thing, so that's pretty cool. They see all this. Dumbledore knows that they're hiding in the room, and obviously so does Hagrid. Hagrid says, hey, go find my friend to clear me of any misdoing, which is the spider that he was helping out 50 years ago or whatever. So they're like, okay, so they leave. So Ron, Hagrid's dog, and Harry go and find the spider. Imagine this. This is the weird thing about this is the weird spot in the film for me. Harry and Ron and the dog go to the spider's nest. The spider's name is Aragonagog. So they find the big spider. They go, hey, what's the deal? Hagrid's being taken. And the spider's like, oh, I don't know. I don't deal with these guys. Hagrid saved my life and he's my friend. They said, oh, well, we're friend of Hagrid's. I mean, I haven't been killing anybody off. I'm staying away because they tried to come at me last time, and I'm just laying low. So the kids are like, okay, well, it's clearly not you because we trust you for some reason. And then they're like, okay, so we're gonna go now. Ron's freaking out about this entire thing. Dog doesn't seem to care, but they're freaking out because all these other little spiders are closing in, right? So like, we're leaving, and the spider, Aragonagog. I mean, it's nice that you dropped by. Haven't spoken to anybody in a long time, but I'm not the bad guy. But I can't let you guys go because my kids are hungry. So they attack the kids. They start, action starts happening, and then out of the middle of it, nowhere comes the flying, beat-up car from earlier in the film that dropped Harry and Ron off at Hogwarts. The car, which seemed pretty fed up with them because they expelled them from its own, inside chassis earlier in the film, comes to rescue them from the spiders, who aren't the bad guy. They leave, they get out of the car, and the car leaves. So they just saved them from all these spiders. Nothing is spoken about it. But so dead end there. So they go back to Hermione, and Hermione's got this little slip in her comatose hand. It's crumpled up piece of paper, which you would have thought that anybody who transported her to the bed would have noticed this in her hand. And they find out it's a snake, basilisk monster. Well, it's like Slytherin, so it's got to be something. They're like, when I was sucked into this Thomas Riddle's book and given a flashback, there was a girl who died on the property. What's the one ghost who's in kid's uniform on the property? It's Myrtle in the freaking girls' laboratory. So they go over there and they interview her, and she says, oh, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, I was too distraught. The entrance was in the girls' bathroom. The Chamber of Secrets is located underneath the girls' bathroom. And they know this by finding a snake, a faucet with a snake on it. Just go with it. Kids' logic. Just before they find the entrance to this and they find this out, they find out that Ron's younger sister has disappeared. And she's the last one. At that point, that's it. You got McGonagall just straight up say, okay, we gotta close. We gotta do stuff now. Now is a bad time. Things are happening really quickly. We gotta start sending kids home. So I'm assuming that that's what's happening at the school when the kids go to find Lockhart, who is the sham artist. He doesn't know anything. He takes people's stories and takes them from them. So the kids are, prodding him about do that or, we'll squeal or something. Lockhart, Ron, and Harry end up at the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. They're going down. Somehow Lockhart flubs up his own... He's bad at this. Good celebrity, bad wizard. Messes up his own spell, casts it on himself because he used Ron's broken wand, which was established earlier on. It all comes back. So Lockhart's useless. I thought he would be more, but it's just a comedic relief. So they finally get in this chamber. Ron's left behind, so it's just Harry. So Harry finds Ron's sister in this little battle royale area in the sewer. It's very open. And then he finds the essence, as it were, of Tom Riddle. Tom Riddle goes on and on about, and yeah, Harry, you do have a little bit of the whole Slytherin essence in you too, or whatever, and starts talking, and eventually find out at some point this happens. I don't know if I zoomed out. I might play... Yeah, actually, let me just play back the video of me watching it so you can see what my thoughts are. Hopefully I'm not picking my nose.
Voldemort is my past, present, and future.
Wow. Tom Riddle is a 16-year-old Voldemort. I have confusion about this because is Tom Riddle a in-the-moment copy of a little bit of essence of Voldemort that was stored in this book and just kept there for years for it to be opened somehow, because we don't know at this point how it got there, to be opened, accessed, and so Tom Riddle, who's told a lie with the whole story about the spider to throw off Harry's trail and stuff. And he says, oh, I'm Voldemort. Is this Voldemort right now? Because as we saw in the previous video, he can't incarnate any physical being. Was this something where he was created, this Tom Riddle character, before he became Voldemort? Is this Tom Riddle before he became super evil and just put a little bit in his book to be like, okay, well, I hate you, Harry, so I'll just put a little bit of me away to spite you in the future? Or is this Voldemort like, this is his plan, is to become part of himself in the book at this point of time and then create this backstory? What I'm trying to say, is this a setup beforehand or is this in real time? Tom Voldemort starts fighting. He breaks out the basilisk and runs it at him, right? Here comes the nice little MacGuffin, the Phoenix that Dumbledore mentions earlier in the film, just as a passing learning experience for Harry Potter, when he scolds him for, breaking rules and stuff like he always does halfway in the movie, and then at the end decides somebody's owls, drops a hat off mid-battle with a snake. In the middle of the hat is a big old broadsword. So Harry uses it, stabs the snake. Also, the Phoenix helps him out, rips the eyes out of the snake off camera because kids' movie can't. So Snake, he and Harry kind of go in between the plumbing. Harry sneaks away. Harry starts trying to battle with Tom Riddle again, who Riddle can't do anything in his form. Like I said, he can't physically hurt anything. He's just there. What would happen? Well, Tom Riddle's part of this book, right? He's in this book. It comes from the book. So Harry's like, okay, well, screw you, buddy. So he takes the part that he ripped off the basilisk and just starts stabbing the book. And of course, that means Tom's breaking apart and getting hurt at the time. So Tom Voldemort just gets, blown up, stabbed multiple times. Harry stabs the book, dies, spell's broken, saves the day. Okay, so here comes the end, whole scolding thing that teachers will do at the end, which will then turn it into a congratulatory manner. So this is what happens in these books, is that, yes, okay, they need to be told by these parental figures and teachers that they broke rules. But then, of course, it's twisted just enough to make it look like a positive, because obviously they saved the day again. In this case, it's warranted because honestly, there are stakes. This is hurting everybody in the school, not just Harry. There's a little bit of hero worship, so I think it's warranted. I'm over thinking about this. It was a fun thing, whatever. Jason Isaacs is excellently lit. There's frames where he is trying to slightly defend himself, even though nobody's accusationally, they're just hinting that they know that he's the baddie. And he's well lit. His eyes are like theatrically shot with his light cue that just screams tension. And it's amazing, and you can't get more non-subtle than that. I loved it. You get Dobby coming back, because obviously he is House Malfoy's servant. So he's a servant for the family. You see him that he treats him so fucking poorly, man. Anyway, they're in the hallway, and Harry gives the book Malfoy. He's like, it's not mine, throws it back. I didn't do this. And there's a sock, so Harry hid a sock somehow in the book right before he went in the hallway. I don't know where he had time to take his shoe off. He's magic. He can probably just spout some stuff under his breath and just have it magically appear. And there's a stipulation that when Dobby appears, when Harry's in the hospital bed, recovering from his stupid Quidditch accident. Dobby says offhand you need to be given clothes to be released from your vow of ownership or slavery or whatever. It's weird, but there's got to be clauses in all these things. Dobby gets presented with a sock, which is a piece of clothing that was presented from Malfoy. Oh my god, I suck at names. Yeah, Malfoy. Gaslighting myself here. Great, that means he's released from his vow. Great, that's how we end that arc. I think it'd be cool to see Dobby doing something else future, maybe not. Dobby needs some damn therapy. Anyway, we reached the end. Everything's back to normal. People are safe. Hermione is safe again. Everybody is, not turned into stone or comatose or whatever. And then, of course, you get Hagrid comes back. I like this movie more than the first film, and that's because they didn't have to set up anything. In this particular film, they didn't have to set up characters, this universe. It was just, you already know what's happening, let's go into a story. I like how there is probably going to be some continuation on character development, which I can't wait for it. Snape wasn't really in this one a whole lot. I like Alan Rickman, so whatever. I've already told you how much I love Alan Rickman. R.I.P. guy. Kids are doing great. Stakes happened, so there was more of a meaningful plots here. There was more of a motivation to help everything, so I liked that. Finally, it wasn't all about Harry. I dug that. So the last thing I will say is that the negatives, besides the very small thing of the ending of Hagrid having a weird hero's welcome home without doing anything, that was a little strange. And I still don't like Quidditch. It's the most dangerous game I've ever seen portrayed. Kids are flying around, no helmets, no talk of concussion. Kids are getting hurt, but it looks like magic can solve a bunch of stuff, like apparently healing bones, even though that wasn't a good example of that in this movie. Scenario of them having concussions, those are long-term health risks. I'm thinking way too much about this, but honestly, guys, give the kids some helmets. I like this movie better than the first one. This was a better film. Didn't have to think about it. I know it's a continuation, but now I'm starting to get it. I'm better with the names. I'm still struggling. I apologize for that. So that was the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I enjoyed this one. Thanks. Explain in the comments whether you like this stuff or not. Once again, I've never read the books. I've just starting to watch the films, so I'm just getting into this world. I'm digging it. It's helpful that I have roommates here while we have time off in the world for obvious reasons, that I'm able to get some feedback immediately after watching it and absorbing this information. So, see me next time for part 3 when we do the Prisoner of Prisoner of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Azkaban.